The planned US attack on Iran has a hitch. Most of the bomb-targeting crew are busy queuing for toilets on the lead vessel, the USS Gerald R. Ford. This is not a joke. A set of emails was obtained by NPR, a US public broadcasting group, revealing that toilet wars have broken out on board the most expensive ship the US Navy ever.
Toilet wars. Did you hear that correctly? They're having the Navy personnel and the fighter jet pilots are having toilet wars because as they're supposed to be preparing for war against Iran, they're having wars against each other because the toilets have all broken down and they have like hour-long lines. The Americans are sending help. They are sending all the aid they can send to the Iranians. And keep in mind, this whole show of force, this gunboat diplomacy we're witnessing, it's supposed to be, shock and awe levels of military buildup, 2003 levels of military buildup. I mean, this is like 1/5 of all U.S. fifth generation fighter jets, 2/3 of the U.S. Navy assets. The whole idea here is not just gunboat diplomacy. It's not just that a war is probably going to happen. But also, the United States, I think they kind of understand by now that they cannot actually achieve regime change via warfare, via airstrikes, right? At the very least, you'd need troops on the ground. The most, and like really what is required, would be the domestic population of Iran, some of the 90 million people, right? To stand up and say like, oh, we don't like this government. We'd rather be a vassal of Tel Aviv and DC, right? Never going to happen. But the U.S. still, they still try very hard. They still make this case that we're coming to save you and we hear your concerns. We are your great saviors. The good news for the United States is any Iranian that is swayed by the public statements of Pahlavi or Donald Trump, they actually have no idea how much the United States is crumbling. If they did know how much of a shit show objectively U.S. major cities are, U.S. infrastructure across the country, rural America, if they had any idea that the United States doesn't look like what it looks like in a Brad Pitt film, a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, something like that, then they might actually not support the idea of becoming a vassal to the United States. Now, this is where things get tricky because part of this whole campaign to win the hearts and minds of treasonous Iranians and Iranians who want to turn the page, flip the page of the Islamic Republic into a new future where they will be dogs of the U.S. empire, is that the U.S. has this extensive military force and fighter power and whatnot. So the U.S. is sending 2/3 of the U.S. Navy en route to the region. Right? The most powerful, the largest U.S. aircraft carrier, the Gerald R. Ford, is currently on its way. In fact, it was seen off the coast of Haifa last night. Now, the problem with this propaganda narrative that like, oh, the U.S. is untouchable, we're so powerful, we're so amazing, everything's so perfect, you definitely want to be our dogs, you definitely want to be our slaves, is that even the most powerful, the largest U.S. military assets, the upper echelon, the elites of the U.S. military that we are sending over to Iran to show them how great we are of a country, is literally falling apart. The USS Gerald R. Ford risks sinking in the Persian Gulf, not because of an Iranian missile, not because of some Shahed 139 drone being launched at it, not because of difficult sea conditions, but because it is quite literally overflowing with human waste. I'm not even joking. This is not a meme. The American aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford, which is on its way to Iran, is experiencing significant problems with its sewage system, with several toilets blocked. And it's not just several. The prolonged operation against Venezuela has put pressure on the sewage system. That's the official story. Press TV, Iranian media outlet, is having a lot of fun with this. They write, shit happens. The USS Gerald R. Ford, $13 billion aircraft carrier, by the way, sailing toward West Asia amid U.S. threats against Iran, is reportedly crippled by a sewage meltdown. 205 breakdowns in 4 days, 4,500 crew and 45-minute bathroom lines and technicians fixing pipes. But I guess they're not really doing all that good of a job of fixing those pipes.
The planned US attack on Iran has a hitch. Most of the bomb targeting crew are busy queuing for toilets on the lead vessel, the USS Gerald R. Ford. This is not a joke. A set of emails was obtained by NPR, a US public broadcasting group, revealing that toilet wars have broken out on board the most expensive ship the US Navy ever.
Toilet wars. Did you hear that correctly? They're having the Navy personnel and the fighter jet pilots are having toilet wars because as they're supposed to be preparing for war against Iran, they're having wars against each other because the toilets have all broken down and they have like hour-long lines.
Trump crapped his pants on live TV a few weeks ago. Not only are our leaders crapping themselves, our warships are doing the same.
You know, maybe the IDF can share the information as to what sort of diapers they use for their military ventures in Gaza, and the U.S. can procure some of their own.
Built, and the Wall Street Journal followed up to confirm the tale today. TLDR summary: there are too few functioning toilets for 4,600 sailors, and the problem is worsening daily. Problem 1, design planners screwed up by including too few toilets for 4,000 plus sailors, leading to 45-minute queues on a daily basis. Problem 2, engineers screwed up by installing a fragile vacuum system in which a single valve breakdown on one toilet can stop all the toilets in an entire department functioning, making the queues even longer. Problem 3, some of the temporary repair operations, such as using an acid flush to clear out calcium buildups, can only be done while the ship is docked. No prospect of that.
I'm going to tell you guys something. I really hope, I have no idea, but I really hope, because this would be poetic, if somehow some of the U.S. soldiers on board that ship realize that if one single toilet in the row of toilets malfunctions, that the whole row of toilets will then break down. And, you know, I'm just kind of wondering, because the vast majority of the American public opposes this war. Tucker Carlson, who's probably beloved by many in the U.S. military, opposes this war. Like everyone who's cool in America opposes this war. I'm not really all that sure if there are too many U.S. military personnel that are like avid followers of Laura Loomer or Mike Huckabee. You know, I just don't think that's the case, right? So something that came across my mind when I heard this story is like, well, if I was on the ship, I'd probably just like, and I realized that you could just like destroy all the toilets with one toilet being clogged. I'd probably just, you know, destroy one toilet and tell, like, if I have 10 friends that also don't want to die in the middle of the Persian Gulf getting hit by a Iranian Khorramshahr 4 missile and getting sunk to the bottom of the sea, I'd probably tell those 10 friends, I'd be like, look, you guys, there's one way we can all get out of here, right? There's one way we could possibly avert war. We need to all go into 10 separate of the toilet rolls at the same time and just clog them all or like rip up the piping or something like that and just destroy them. And maybe it was deliberate, or maybe this could also be a real possibility, because I've seen some of the U.S. military personnel. I've seen photos of them. They're not the fittest guys on the world. Maybe one of them had, like, sorry for being a little bit grotesque here, but maybe one of them had a dump with overwhelming force. And maybe, like, they were, you know, you have, like, these really big, unathletic, not too fit U.S. military personnel. And with overwhelming forces, they always say in the U.S. military, they started to clog the toilets. And maybe it was actually the poor health standards of the U.S. military that caused the breakdown. That could also be the truth. You know, too many of these lobster steak dinners as they were preparing for war. That could also be true. I find this whole story to be very interesting.
But with so many toilets out of order, too much pressure is put on the ones still working, so the problem will just spread. And the issues have already been mounting for more than a year. A March 18th, 2025 email from the engineering department sent out to all chiefs on the ship said there were 205 toilet breakdowns in 4 days, the NPR reported. Now, the ship is at the heart of US overseas attack operations, working for months in waters near Venezuela to support the abduction of the country's president and the seizing of ships carrying oil to customers around the world. and the ship is now heading the planned regime change operation in Iran. Israel wants a pro-Netanyahu leader installed, as the US has done in many other countries. But how can they attack Iran while staff are queuing for the loo? One result of all this is a war of words between sailors and onboard sewage staff, called hull technicians, or HTs. One sewage engineering chief complained that sailors put all sorts of problematic material down the toilets. Even T-shirts were found clogging the pipes.
So maybe it was on purpose.
Our sewage system is being mistreated and destroyed by sailors on a daily basis. My HTs are currently working 19 hours a day right now, trying to keep up with the demand. The US taxpayer sent $13 billion on this ship. On the plus side, it would be delightful if the carrier's desperate lack of functioning toilets caused the attack on Iran to be cancelled or postponed.
Look, maybe they're doing it on purpose. And, you know, when I was in Yemen and they were bombing Yemen, I gave speeches. I said, consciously object, U.S. military personnel, don't, you know. But actually, maybe all I really had to do was tell them to, like, stuff a bunch of random objects down the toilets, and that would have sufficed. Because, you know, if you consciously object, you'll get, like,
Bullsh T gets us into war. True SH asterisk T gets us out.
I guess so.
Poetry.
I guess so. It is poetry. I mean, you know, maybe that's what they're doing. Like, if you consciously object and you refuse service, refuse your official command, I think you get dishonorably discharged. So this is a way for them to anonymously, I guess, ruin the whole mission by just, you know, not destroying the whole ship, not doing something where they're going to get caught, but effectively forcing the ship to make a decision as to whether it's going to have to go back to port in Greece. So very interesting stuff. We salute you, U.S. soldiers, if you are in fact doing this on purpose, which I kind of believe that might actually be what's happening. We salute you. Great work. Keep it up. Do it to more of them. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.